Trump promised to hire better people this time around, and he's off to a hot start. Ladies and gentlemen, America's heartthrob Stephen Miller is getting a promotion. This time he'll be Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. That means he'll have a lot of authority over the mission. Former New York Congressman Lee Zeldin has been tapped to lead the EPA. New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik will be UN ambassador. Florida Congressman Mike Waltz has been selected to be Trump's national security advisor. He's a former Green Beret who's come on this show demanding answers about Butler. Kamala's no longer border czar. Former ICE director Tom Homan has been put in charge of mass deportations. And Tom's not messing around.
I got a message to the millions of illegal aliens that Joe Biden's releasing our country in violation of federal law. You better start packing now.
If sanctuary cities don't want to help, then get the hell out of the way because we're coming.
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
Trump also declaring who will not be joining his administration: Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo. Remember, during the 2016 transition, the RNC was in charge. Trump didn't know Washington, and the FBI was setting booby traps. This time he knows the terrain, has executive orders already drafted, faces little to no resistance, and is ready to hit the ground running. His new chief of staff says this: the window to revolutionize the government is more like 2 years rather than 4. And while Trump takes over the government, Democrats are trying to figure out what to do with Kamala. First, they floated the idea of putting her on the Supreme Court. They tried to force wise Latina Sonia Sotomayor to step down because they say she's 70 and has diabetes. But the wise Latina caught wind of the coup, and her people told the Journal she has no plans to retire. Sources tell Primetime Brett Kavanaugh was ecstatic when he heard he didn't have to work with Kamala and had a beer. So since that's off the table, Democrats want to finish Biden off with another coup.
Joe Biden has been a phenomenal president. He's lived up to so many of the promises he's made. There's one promise left that he could fulfill, being a transitional figure. He could resign the presidency in the next 30 days, make Kamala Harris the president of the United States.
Whoa.
It would absolve her from being able to, from having to oversee the January 6th transition, right, of her own defeat. And it would make it easier for the next woman who runs for president to not have to worry about all the historical, weight of being the first.
We've just gotten a look inside the mind of a modern-day Democrat. Who cares what the voters want? Promote an unqualified woman who didn't earn it so her feelings don't get hurt. The white guy who earned it, who cares what he thinks? He's old. The Bidens still aren't even over the last coup. Harris and Biden were seen together today for the first time since the landslide at Arlington Cemetery. Dr. Jill's giving Kamala the cold shoulder. You think it's a little tense? I do. But Pelosi's telling the Bidens to get over it. It's his fault they lost.
Had the president gotten out sooner, there may have been other candidates in the race.
Should there have been an open primary, though?
Well, see, we thought that there would be. The anticipation was that if the president were to step aside, that there would be an open primary.
Nancy's saying they shouldn't have run Joe or Kamala, even though at the time she said Joe was FDR and Kamala had more magic than Barack. Biden world's gone from bickering behind closed doors to fist fighting on the front lawn.
Nancy Pelosi, everybody talks about how the Speaker Emerita, she's so strategic, she can count. And yes, she did all of that when she was the Speaker in Congress. But my question is, where is your calculator now? Because Democrats are about to lose the dang on House. And for her to sit on this podcast, we would play the sound about how, it's up to the, I don't deal in presidential politics, but she helped orchestrate, I'm going to say it.
This cycle.
She played in presidential politics this cycle, and she helped orchestrate the very public demise of the president.
That's right.
And thank God for Joe Biden that he came out and endorsed his VP, because these people wanted an open primary.
And for where?
It's like a prison yard fight, and Jim Clyburn's trying to break it up.
As we take an assessment of all of this, we ought to just chill out for a while, get in touch with each other. Don't worry about blaming anybody. I think we all just take the stock of who and what we are and not get caught up in pointing fingers and assigning blame.
Clyburn's trying to play peacemaker all of a sudden. He's the one who created this stupid ticket in the first place. He backed Biden in South Carolina, and in exchange forced him to pick a black woman as his running mate. They both went down in flames, and he's telling everybody, guys, stop pointing fingers. Nobody's listening to James. He's toast. The party wants blood. Biden loyalists are complaining behind the scenes that this is the second time Obama pushed Joe out, first in 16 and then in 24. And both times Joe would have won, they say. Axelrod's glasses almost shattered.
Come out into the daylight and say what you have to say, put your name under it, and then let's have a discussion about it. But don't be such a sniveling little coward that you put an unnamed quote out there saying what is absolutely. Look at the guy.
The Clinton syndicate also itching for a fight. They feel like they were ripped off into buying a jalopy.
We didn't even get a chance to kick the tires. We just said, you're buying the car, and you have no choice. And, of course, we bought the car.
Biden endorsing Kamala just 30 minutes after the coup. That was the kiss of death. And after 3 years of covering up Biden, the party was forced to cover up for Kamala and say she was a Ferrari when she wasn't. The second they drove off the lot, she crashed.
I think if this campaign is reducible to one moment, we're in a 65% wrong track country. The country wants something different. And she's asked, is so often the case in a friendly audience on The View, how would you be different than Biden? That's the one question that you exist to answer. All right? That is it. That's the money question. That's the one you want. That's the one that everybody wants to know the answer to. And you freeze. You literally freeze and say, well, I can't think of anything. When we go back and history unearths this, it's going to be right there on The View.
Did you ever think a View interview would doom a Democrat? I didn't. Democrats around the country are lined up outside the bathroom now to wash their hands of this. George Clooney says he's taking a step back from politics, so don't make him a scapegoat. And Democrat insiders are leaking to Rolling Stone that it wasn't their idea for Harris to campaign with Liz Cheney. They say they begged Harris to stop. Quote, people don't want to be in a coalition with the devil. They were saying, hey, maybe focus more on energizing your base than Liz Cheney. The Harris crew told him to get lost. No thanks. Oh, and Bernie's loose. He's running to the Sunday shows saying, I told you so.
How exactly do you think Democrats have abandoned the working class, Senator?
Look, the working people of this country are extremely angry. If you're an average working person out there, do you really think that the Democratic Party is going to the mats, taking on powerful special interests and fighting for you? I think the overwhelming answer is no.
Nancy Pelosi's telling Burn Dog to just shut up.
Well, I just completely disagree. And in fact, might notice that Kamala Harris ran ahead of Bernie Sanders in Vermont.
So what does that tell you? I mean,
well, it tells you that the fact is that what we do, what our purpose is in the Democratic Party is for America's working families. So since you pursue it, what? Go ask Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders has not won. Let me, with all due respect, and I have a great deal of respect for him, for what he stands for, but I don't respect him saying that the Democratic Party has abandoned the working class families.
So the Democrats doing an autopsy on Tuesday's wipeout, and the results are in. America thinks they're crazy, preachy, incompetent, and abandoned the working class in exchange for illegals, transgenders, and felons. The New York Times says some Democrats are finally waking up and realizing that woke is broke, and they're just a bunch of brats.
That's what I hate about the left. You're brats. You're brats and you're snobs, and people don't like that.
This wasn't just an election. This was an intervention. The left shut out of every branch of government, and their coalition's being gobbled up by a hungry billionaire who came back from the dead. Their leadership's all in their 80s, on their last legs, politically. And the one person who was supposed to know what he was doing staged a coup without a backup plan. Obama's biographer says Barry's been extremely concerned and nervous about how history will remember him. That has certainly taken a big hit with Trump once again triumphing. Democrats all thought it was tone deaf and clueless for them to preach as they did, but now he's as relevant as Bill Clinton. Barack never saw Biden's snap Kamala endorsement coming. He got outmaneuvered by Sleepy Joe. It was his last bit of revenge as he pulled the knife out of his back. The Democratic Party has destroyed itself trying to destroy Trump. And the more they resist, the worse it gets. Everything they're resisting, the majority of the country backs. And all the tactics that they used are so dirty and unconstitutional that they've turned Trump into a folk hero for surviving and winning. Since they can't stop us, we're not invited to Thanksgiving.
How do we move forward when we know there are people you have people in their families who voted for him? They work with people who voted for him. They live next to people who voted for him. How should we deal with those neighbors, co-workers, family members?
Do you recommend, just from a psychological standpoint, being around them? We got the holidays coming up.
It's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why, to say, I have a problem with the way that you voted because it went against my very livelihood and I'm not going to be around you this holiday. I need to take some space for me.
Yep, people are taking some space in the Watters household. I'll have you know that I was not invited to my mother's house for Thanksgiving. Apparently there wasn't enough room. She said it was a scheduling situation. And then at the last second invited me to come over on Black Friday. I told her no thanks, I'll be at Best Buy. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.